Let's call the November 11, 2014 Board of Trustees of the Urbana Free Library to order. Do I hear a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
That includes the minutes of the last meeting, October 14th, and approval of bills of October 22 and November 5. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Petitions and communications. Do we have anybody from the public? Staff, but nobody public. Okay, the presentation. Celeste.
Hi. If you don't mind, I will stay seated so we can be seated together. What I've just given you are two pieces of paper with different information that's going to tie together a little bit. So what I don't know is how much you know about the tax levying process and how our taxes flow to us. And Jeff, with you being new to the board, I thought I would just take an opportunity to quickly run through the process and how it works and where the city is right now with its tax levy process at the moment, and how that impacts some of the decisions you'll be making about potentially increasing the staff salary schedule to potentially match the salary schedule increases that the non-bargaining unit staff at the city and the ASME bargaining unit staff at the city have recently received. So that's where we're coming from. If you look at the one that says General Fund Fiscal Year 12-13 at the top, it's long and tiny and skinny. I apologize that. I wanted to fit it all on one page so you could see at a glance. A fiscal year at a glance. This is at the top part. I'm looking at our income, where the library receives its income from primarily, and when it comes into us for our fiscal year. So I've highlighted in September's and in June's is when the property taxes are collected. The property taxes are collected on the prior calendar year. And that's just good to know that the city makes levy decisions with a tentative levy in November and with a final approved levy in December, and that is for the current calendar year you're in, but the library receives that money in the next calendar year, but that's actually crossing 2 fiscal years. So in any given fiscal year, we are receiving income from 2 different real year tax levies, which there might also be different. So part of what we do when we estimate our income for property taxes, which as you can see, property taxes are a total of 87% of our entire budget. That's a lot of the library's income. It's the primary source. And you can only do your best estimate to see what that will be. Outside factors impact it, including the equalized assessed value, which may go up, down, or be stable. So we do our best estimating with our help from our colleagues at the city. The new financial officer has already been over twice to meet with us. She's really fantastic. We're very pleased to work with her. And so a couple things I want to point out here looking at this, how the money flows and how it ebbs. Again, in the fiscal year, we get 43% to 45% of our money over these 2 years for the entire fiscal year in the last month of the fiscal year, potentially in the last couple of weeks in the fiscal year. So the library needs a healthy fund balance to keep it going, to get it to that very last month where the last of the money comes in for us. The city has kindly offered, if we get in a pinch with not having enough of a fund balance, depending on other things that need to happen to keep us running smoothly, to give us a loan to get us because they know the revenue is coming in. So that's good to know that we have that offer in our back pocket. But it's just, I think, interesting to see how the money comes in. And sometimes that June money is actually not arriving until July, and then it's booked backwards because it's estimated revenue for that fiscal year. So any questions or comments about this?
I do have one question about this strange way.
Sure.
Is this unusual, or is this typical for libraries in Illinois, in the country?
I don't know.
Are we particularly loony? I mean, Illinois is known for being
No
a bit
comment.
unusual. But, I mean, did this strike you as especially strange, or is it okay? I mean, is this typical for the situation that executive directors of libraries have to face.
Well, if you're in a city library and the fiscal year is off of your tax year, then it's what you have. So I don't know if it's goofy or unusual or not, but I know that it is what we have. And the library had a different fiscal year. Fred mentioned at some point it had been switched a couple of months, but I think it is wise of us to match the city's fiscal year for all those auditing purposes. I don't know if we would want to switch it, but it is something that that top year, the variance between what we expected to get from the budget and what we got was $151,000. That's kind of a lot of money. And it couldn't, maybe it wasn't that the income was down, it's just that the EAV was lower than expected when we budgeted because things weren't set yet.
The city made a proposal that they would loan. Is that an interest-free loan?
That we didn't get to any of those part
Okay.
of discussions. That's a good question to ask. So you can see, go ahead.
The 2012, they didn't come in September, it came in November. Is that a common occurrence, that it comes in a couple months late?
There was a lot of turnover at the city last year at that point in time, and library staff here worked with them to tell them what the normal pay cycle was. And so that came a little bit later, in part because they had new staff over there that didn't know how that worked. And if it's normal,
No, we usually get it in June. and
Two,
September.
sorry.
Yeah, but it takes a second step. I think other taxing bodies get the money directly from the treasurer, county treasurer. Ours goes from the treasurer to the city to
Just
us.
right, because they levy the taxes for the library. So I hope this is helpful. This is one way of looking at our income and how it comes in, but I thought this would be hopefully useful. Any questions about this?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I see a difference with, there's a line called adjustments, and there isn't
Yes.
any adjustments in the 2012.
But there are 13s.
And let me say one thing.
Oh, 12.
I just didn't fill in those numbers in
You
part
didn't.
for any of the other months except for the totals and the
Okay,
Junes.
all right.
In part to see where the money came in, but also, yeah, that line, the L that ends with 3035, it wasn't in the budget for
Oh,
last
okay.
year.
All right.
So sometimes there are adjustments between the city and the library
Mhm.
for different things going back and forth.
Why is there such a difference between fines?
Those are, I think she just included June.
She
for
just,
the-
oh, I see, I see. I
Everything
got it.
below
I got it.
adjustments,
I just got
you
it.
just have 1 month, right?
Correct.
So everything below adjustments, you can kind of ignore the variance.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get it.
Thanks, I should have blocked those out.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, I was wondering, oh, go ahead.
Just on the property taxes collected for rate year 2013, so that would be the one that just, our fiscal year
Mhm.
that just ended in June, right?
Right.
So that year-to-date 3.134 million, that is half of this year's levy and half of last year's levy? Is that what that would be?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, every year is half and half.
Yeah.
A fiscal year is parts of 2 real years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I was looking at 2011, 2012, where the variance between what we got and what we budgeted was $151,000. It probably would be good to do a little forensic analysis on it. Was that a problem on
I
the,
think-
we just somebody overestimated the EAV, or did we overestimate?
Or did we not get as much because people
That
wanted
was-
to pay less on their taxes?
That was the year that Carl didn't apply for some of their exemptions until after January, after the levy had been made. So
Oh.
what we had budgeted and what everybody
Okay.
expected was
Okay,
more
so-
than
okay,
we
so-
got.
okay, so
They
this-
came in with some last second exemptions basically that passed after the levies passed.
Okay, so that was a one-time thing.
But, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Not much to learn from that then.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Any other questions? Does the staff understand this? You're the ones
We're
that.
learning too.
That's a good answer.
Glad you didn't ask if the board understood it.
Oh, I know, we're snowed already, but they're the ones spending the money, so.
It'll take me a long time to figure this
So
out.
That's the first page, so then there's a follow-up
Okay,
page.
okay.
This is laying some of the groundwork, so
Yeah.
that the second page makes sense. So what you're gonna see on the second page, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a pretty little box, and then some text underneath it. That's the part that I did. The other part along the left side and down and over a little bit, Mark at the city, who's working on the audit, also pulled initial numbers so that the city and the library could estimate what potential salary increases might cost the city and library. And these are just library numbers. These are estimates. The city hasn't finished the computer program that will get us on a person-by-person basis. So this is net payroll numbers. We know that we have some people who've left service, some people retired throughout the year last year. They won't receive retro pay or an increase in salary this year as they're no longer on staff. So we expect the numbers to be a little bit less, but fairly on target. So if you look at the fiscal year 14 base pay, that came in at just over $2 million. And if you add in a retroactive, there's a T missing there, sorry, 1.5% rate increase, that would be an additional $30,800. And then if you take that and add it together, you start this year that we're already into, this year's salary would start that $30,000 higher, and then you'd add a 1.75 rate increase on top of that, which would add an additional $36,000. So if you add those two things together, you're going to come up with a $98,000 difference between what we budgeted in salaries this year and what having retro pay and what having the increase in salaries would cost in salaries this year. So that's over what we budgeted. And I don't want to talk about next year because we're in this year and this is what we need to look at for the moment. It's a 2.75 proposed that was adopted in the ASME contract. But again, I recommend we take a look at retro in this current fiscal year, not debate the other one tonight. So what I've shown on the upper right-hand side is our property tax for calendar year or real year 2013 was 2918 924, and that was at a tax rate of 0.5608. Elizabeth from the city came over and talked with us. The city is going to be, it looks like the EAV is going to go down 1.6%. The mayor has made a commitment to keep the property tax flat for a number of reasons, to make us competitive as a place to live and pay taxes. And so if she were to hold the library flat, as far as the tax rate, the library's income would go down $46,702. The mayor has offered that we could keep the tax amount flat, which would raise the levy to this 0.5698-ish. Elizabeth said she would take a peek at that. But in talking with the city about the impact that the salary increases would have and what the library's options were, because the city is not volunteering to pay transferred funds as they had in the past. We were asking if the levy could be increased, and this is the increase that the mayor is offering, given the other obligations that the city has to meet. So as we look at retro pay and a current salary increase for this fiscal year, I have given you 4 options. There are other options. These are the 4 that seemed most immediate and things I think we should talk about. We can find funds in this year's budget that we're in. For example, Becky has estimated $4,600 in savings from January to July because the city's health insurance plan is going down 3%. So that will be a 3% savings, so this is for that half year. We could request of the city to increase the property tax levy over the amount that they're suggesting they would like to put forward. It has been suggested to us that the library could sell the Weber property and use that to pay for staff salary increases. This was a gift to the library, purchased as a capital donation for future expansion and such. It has also been suggested that we could use fund balance, and at the end of last year, even with the cutting back in different areas, not receiving the VERF funds that were expected, given some really good financial stewardship, it appears that $115,000 increased in the fund balance at the end of the year. This is pre-audit, so we don't know what the auditors are gonna move around. But usually there's some tweaking back and forth, but these are what we have now as far as the numbers to look at. So I wanted to give you this information and then see what questions you have. The city will not put forward that tentative proposed tax levy until the 24th of November. And then I want to say it's December 20th, December 17th, that they vote and approve whatever the final levy is that they put forward. So where and when you want to make your decision about this is completely up to you. So I'll be quiet now and take any questions, comments.
The unions have not all settled, so is that figure concrete yet? As to what pay raises they're offering?
The ASME contract had a Me Too clause, so that if fire or police received greater benefits or greater salary increases, at least the ASME contract would get
Reflect that
them
need.
as well. But the other two units haven't settled yet. So I don't know if it's final or if they're matching.
Mark, can you say anything as to whether?
I can't really say
Yeah.
anything more
Okay.
than what you know here. I mean, this is the raise that the city people got, right?
The non-bargaining unit and the ASME staff got
So
this
they-
raise,
they-
correct?
yeah.
So the non-bargaining units are the ones that not in the unions.
And generally try to keep ourselves in line with what the city does.
Yes, we
That
have.
Which
has been
that's been a
the
good practice.
That's what's been practice.
Well, frankly, my own opinion, I don't think I'd be comfortable making a commitment to doing something with the salaries until we learn a little bit more about what's happening with the levy.
Yeah, I share that, and just in full disclosure, we had our finance committee, ad hoc committee meeting last Friday, and we discussed this, and budgeting is kind of like the voodoo process anyway. And, you know, so one part Eye of Newt and so forth, and I think we just can't let ourselves get in over our heads and by picking numbers before we know what the real numbers are would put us in a situation where we could be very unhappy, and our patrons and our staff and everybody else. I agree with Beth. I think we need to delay our final decision making until we have our hard, firm numbers.
But then that being said, once we have it, I'd like to then move very quickly, once we do know what the numbers are. So I think I'd like, just as a board, for us to have some idea of what we want to do. Because, yes.
Well, our plan of attack.
Exactly, because what we're basically doing is we're asking the staff to wait
Yeah.
on raises. But then I think in good faith, we'd have a hard time saying, oh, here's your raises when we don't quite know what the budget situation is. That's not
Yeah.
really responsible as well, so.
Should have a plan as to how we're going to fund them. Where is the money going to come from? So we don't wind up a year or two from now looking at a situation that makes the front page of the paper again, and justifiably so.
If our priority is to give raises, it's been, 5 years or so since people have had raises.
It's only been 5 years.
For,
Two.
Yeah, just back to
okay.
the retroactive, yeah.
Okay,
Raise it.
if our priority was to give raises, then do you have any ideas yet what would have to be cut in order to
No.
make up the difference?
Well, it depends if you say that we can use the money that was put into fund balance. So that's one of the other questions. There's a handout in here that we're not gonna just go through tonight. I thought we could maybe look at that at a slightly later date, even next month. The library has a healthy fund balance. At the end of June, there's about $1.4 million in there, $1.3 million in that range. But again, that is what gets us through to the next year. But
Right.
right now, that isn't encumbered at all or set aside. And some of the money in there is for the RHS Health Savings Plan, so that every year people give back to the library part of their health insurance hours, and the library gives them payouts, and when they retire, we pay them out. And we put money aside every year for the 11-year accrual, because every 11 years, there's a 27th pay period. And so the library puts aside money every year, and so we want to, I think, designate some of the funds that are part of that fund balance to be not spent. And so we need to have a look, maybe at the finance committee meeting level, and bring something to the board to say, what are things we think we should do as set-asides? If the boiler and air handler, which are both 40 years old next year, go, it's at least a $300,000 capital investment to fix those. Now, the good news is, if we really have that $1.3 million, we could set aside a portion of that money
For the boiler.
for that purpose. And we're looking at working with the foundation to do, fundraising, that we could say we would like to make sure some of this is capital. Kathy's looking to write a grant perhaps. So we're trying to cover that on other fronts. But I would like to talk about looking at the fund balance and seeing, do you think it's responsible to designate some of those funds? And if you tell me no, then that's what you tell me. And if you say yes, we'll need to look at that, because that will affect the ebb and the flow of money as well.
I think a prerequisite is to understand what funds are recurring funds,
Yes.
what funds are one-time money, and what funds are capital
Sure.
money. Because I think there's a big city up north of here that sold off the Skyway and took 80 years worth of expected revenues and put it in the operating budget and spent it all in 1 or 2 years.
It's not the way to go.
I'm glad Mark brought that up, because when I saw sell the Weber property, that's one-time money.
I agree.
And if you use that for something that's ongoing, you get yourself into trouble pretty quickly. So I mean, if you're gonna sell Weber, then you use it for something, use those funds for something else.
I think you're also sending a bad message to the foundation,
And
who's gone through a lot of
plus,
effort to
not
make a
to-
gift and said, oh, well,
Exactly.
thanks for the gift, but, we're gonna.
And
Not
it was,
to mention
it was
the-
designated in capital.
Exactly.
And so we really
So that
do
one,
have to.
I think I would just take that one out,
I would be
okay?
happy to do that, but it has been suggested.
Oh, I'm sure.
Enough that I thought you would want to hear that has been
I
suggested.
just
as
want
the
to
answer
whittle
the
down
problem.
these
Options.
four to,
Right, that one.
yeah.
Can you remark, and I don't want to hear from the staff, you had told me that when this did go through with the city, that the staff would know the next morning, and have you had responses from the staff on what the city has gotten, city workers?
Well, our staff are curious to know if and when they will
Okay,
receive
what have they
this.
been told?
Well, they have been told the truth, which is if the city is not going to do what they have done in the past, which is either allow us to raise the levy a certain percentage to match that, or literally transfer the money over. If that is not the current practice, then it would impact our budget, which is a board decision, and it needs to go in front of the board. And I went to all the staff meetings, and we talked with people, and so they understand that this is a time of waiting.
How much would that speculatively, that Weber property go for? Not that I'm saying it should be done, but
It sold for $360,000. And that included the three properties, so the green strip of land, the building itself with the small parking lot, then the parking lot where the staff are parking. I have suggested to people that have suggested to me that the library board should just sell that building, for any number of reasons they think that could happen. That if there was a developer who was interested in the building, that you would welcome a conversation about a fair market value. But that is a board decision, and all I can say is I would pass it along to you. So just letting you know, people have asked. I've said I think it's a poor choice to do this. And, but it's my job to bring it to you so you know what conversations are being had.
And if we did sell that, we might not want to use that for ongoing
No.
expense.
That's right.
We might want to
No.
bank that for future expansion or something.
Want
Bill,
to
I
give
would
it back
use
to the
stronger words
foundation,
than mine.
probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be right.
Well, now we're down to 3.
And then there were 3.
But I'm not hearing anything that suggests the board is not amenable to providing our salary increases. We just need to know
Where it's coming from.
Where it's coming from, so.
Right. Just
we
kind of being
can- we can actually
responsible
pay for it.
budgeting.
Yeah. Not issue script or something.
When
like
is that likely to happen?
When we find out the levy, when we find out what the-
That's that November,
The
December.
final levy's passed in December.
December.
Is there,
So it's your January board meeting if you wanted to.
Is there a precedence
long
to
time.
going to the city and asking for an increase in levy? I don't remember it, but
Yes, I mean, just generally, the budget conversations that happen in that March-April timeframe have in the past included, especially involving a salary increase, have included a request for an increase in the levy. Again,
so it was
We're in a
just a matter of what our
different
total
time.
figures
If
was.
we ask for an increase, somebody else will not get,
Yeah.
right,
so it's like a percentage of a whole.
Yeah, from the city perspective,
Right,
if
right.
the mayor's determined to keep.
Exactly.
And she
amount
is,
the same.
she is.
now, the other thing that has not been calculated out yet is if you were to go back to that first sheet with income, there's the state corporate replacement tax line. And those estimates for this year are not completely done yet, but Elizabeth said that when she looks at those, if it looks like that number would be going up for the library, she would let us know. So she's looking out for everyone she needs to look out for. We're very appreciative.
December 20th, that's when they finally set it, right?
I'd have to check the, let me grab my,
Well, no, I was just thinking it's really bad timing because it's right on top of a holiday, but you could always have a special meeting just to deal with that.
well, you don't have to vote
We don't
until your
have to
next
do
board
it.
meeting. if
No,
you
but
don't
just to
want
discuss it, or, you know, then we would know.
But we could do that in the January meeting.
Okay, yeah.
And
But
I will
the-
certainly keep you in the loop because the agendas for the city council meeting go out the Friday or Thursday before. And so there's gonna be, they're gonna vote to accept something and it'll be in there.
Yeah, it'll be discussed, I guess, on the 24th, so that's, what, 2 weeks away?
Right.
I guess my concern would be, it doesn't seem to me that this levy is gonna be sufficient to do what we've been doing, let alone give increases. So, in order for me to argue to the city council that we need to raise it and sacrifice elsewhere, I need to know how much, basically. So do you want to leave that up to me and let me add 60,000 for rate increases and assume we aren't gonna get the 2.75% raise next year, or,
So-
is there any direction, or you just want it to come to the meeting and bring people to the meeting and say we need more and not say how much more? You know? Or do you want to just take what the city council gives you, which would probably be the 2.918924?
And
Would
it also-
it'd be good to know when our new city finance person has our final numbers. I mean, I always like the real numbers, and they're gonna be close, but it'd be nice to know that first.
The corporate replacement tax is the one place she thought maybe we might get a little bit more maybe, so she was gonna look into that.
But little, is that $4,000
I don't
or?
know.
She
If
didn't
you
say,
look at
it
the
can be a
years-
huge number.
Yeah, if you look
Right,
at
'cause-
2012 to 2013, it went from 83,000 to 87,000. So it might be on that scale.
Bill, it's one thing saying, well, we'd like more, or we'd like exactly X amount, or you can do X amount-ish. Yeah. Probably if I was sitting on the other end, I'd want to know more of an exact amount rather than just give us more.
But shouldn't we have in mind that if this is to not come through, what we came to do to cut? Because that's what it's gonna mean, is we're gonna have to cut.
Or we could make a decision to draw from the,
Capital.
Unbalanced.
yes. That's an option as well. It's not, it doesn't sustain through the years, but we have been kind of living on a year-by-year basis.
Yeah, we have.
For, it seems like, for too long.
Seems all the time.
Yes, yes. Just with, the economy, I think a lot of institutions have been living that way.
And Carl has done it to us too, so.
So
Yeah, we
the
don't
fund
have
balance is a million-ish?
Well, let's call it 1.3, 1.4,
okay.
yeah.
And that has to last us till June,
Yes.
okay.
And
And this would be,
but it's not replenished, is
Sig-
it?
no,
So
no,
if
but
what
I'm
we
just
spend this
saying.
year, it doesn't, comes off the beginning fund balance next
Right,
year, so
right.
it's like one-time money.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, but
I think.
it accretes every year, I mean,
But because
We-
we
we-
didn't spend.
we end up with this
Is that because we just didn't spend, or because?
Well, no, I mean, we have this money, and then usually we adjust and readjust and fiddle and finagle every month. We've always had this extra to fiddle around with. It's been different sizes and amounts, but I'm just trying to think of that 1.3 million. 67,304 would be
That would be
the necessary amount. To me, that's a really small part of 1.3 million.
But it depends, if you're looking at retro pay, it's
Yeah,
both numbers, so
right,
that's your
right.
number than this year's addition.
That's what
Yep. We are looking at all the ways to save monies across the departments and be more efficient and to be good stewards. And so there are a couple things we're looking at, and I don't have, again, exact numbers to bring forward, but we'll have something soon on that.
So can I ask, when the city
Yes.
negotiates with XP, they determine a rate, and then do they apply that rate to their non-bargaining union
Yes.
employees?
Yes.
That has been their practice.
Right, as the way they do with us, basically.
Our nurses.
Well, in the past, they have offered the funds equivalently, but it is up to the library to run itself, as you are its governing body. Then you set the budget. The city sets the levy, but we determine the budget given the levy that the library receives.
The city would have the same problem if they ran short funds to decide whether to give that. There's nothing contractual that says they have to give that same increase to their non-bargaining.
There is nothing contractual that says that, that is correct. They have not yet determined where the money is coming from at the city level. They are still working that out themselves. And that is,
But the grace was given, and the people at the city that are non-bargaining are getting in their paychecks
Oh, yeah.
from what I understand.
yes,
so.
they got it pretty quickly. They
So
have not
they've gone
received-
ahead and given the raises
Yes.
without
Yes.
knowing, which is what we're thinking we shouldn't do.
Yes.
That is the
Okay, I
approach
just
that
wanted
I was
to make
taking.
sure
It
I
was never
understand.
discussed in city council, so who knows what the city council would have decided if they were given the chance.
In part, the new city finance officer had not started.
Yeah.
And so in part, deciding where to pull it from, they might have made that decision sooner if she had been on staff yet, but she wasn't. So
Yeah.
again, that,
Situation is different.
they're taking a different approach than we're taking.
Yeah.
So again, this is the discussion time. We can discuss again next month and discuss, and if you're comfortable voting in January, it's up to you to decide. We'll get more information. We'll have some firmer numbers in some areas, but what I wanted to make sure you saw is what I have now, and then you could tell me, what else do you need? What else are you looking for to move ahead? And so if the answer is, you want me to go to city council or to talk to city staff and advocate for the entire amount that would be the library's contribution. Currently, the city does pay the FICA and IMRF. I will be confirming that that would be the case with retro pay and with the increases. I have no reason to believe it wouldn't, but I will confirm that. If that's what you tell me to do, then I will go and say, this is what the board is requesting. The city staff can say, this is not what we're giving to city council because of these reasons, because we're in the fund with police and fire pensions and the general fund. So,
I think it would be fair to ask. I'm not sure we're going to get, but it seems like this kind of hit us pretty cold, and we had no control whatsoever. So our only choice would either be ask for, and I don't think it's a levy. I mean, maybe you'd call it the levy, would you? An increase in levy? Okay. Or we just make severe cuts, and cuts is going to be hours of operation, I think.
No, why do we have to cut?
we
I don't
don't,
understand.
I don't
We
think
don't
we're
have
in
to
the place
cut.
where we have to cut hours of operation yet.
That'd
We're
be-
not in that place yet, in my opinion.
Absolutely not.
I think I'm trying to make sure I say this carefully, because it can be badly misinterpreted. We don't want to come up with a target list of things that are going to get hacked if we don't get the money we think we need. But I think we want to look at if the raise isn't fully funded, or if it is fully funded, there are things we'll be able to do that we won't be able to do if the raises aren't fully funded. So I'd like to focus on the positive at this point and not the negative. I mean, I'm more familiar with school districts, who run into budget trouble, and the first thing they're gonna cut is music and sports. You know, and they wind up cutting neither, but that's what they say. And I think if we can be made whole with, the library can be made whole, there's things we can do in terms of programming, acquisitions, training, development, all sorts of things. So I'd rather focus on that.
I would advocate for asking for possibilities of levy increase. That would be the number one thing in my mind that I would ask for. And then I would also, and this is just me, I would consider dipping into the fund balance.
Okay.
And it's, it's a crapshoot, but,
I think that's better than to go necessarily on capital.
yeah.
Do you have any indication of where we're at as far as this year's budget? Are we?
We look to be pretty
Yeah.
on target, actually. I've been watching, we've all been watching the,
Building expenses
Budget,
were kind of a surprise.
those are a little higher right now, but everything else seems to be right on track. So we're 4 months into the year and we're about a third spent in the different areas roughly.
I was kind of reading this fund balance thing you sent.
Yeah.
And that came to me from Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
That's
committed
interesting.
fund balance, wouldn't like all 1.2 million of that we get in June be committed because we budgeted that money for?
But we budgeted for the fiscal year that just
That's
ended.
last, this is now.
That's kind of the approach we've been saying and talking with the city, my colleagues over there, is like, well, we need this money to survive the year, and what they have said is, this is money that's kind of bonus, you made it through the year. You just made it through the year, but you made it, and now you've got this money coming in, but it is what gets us to the next part, which is how the conversation of, if you spend into your fund balance, which means you don't make it
That's right.
entirely to the next June, until the next comes in, that the city would float us the loan if we take that bid off the top that is needed to get us there. They would loan us the money until the tax revenue came in, because we know the tax revenue is coming in. But the question is,
But
do
then you
we
keep
think it's-
falling back.
Yeah,
Or you
not
ca-
really.
are in danger
It's
of.
start from zero again. I don't know, I always would be in favor of keeping wages at a competitive rate and giving them as priority above everything else. That's just how I feel. I don't know. It's important to me that we have good quality staff who have a good, healthy feeling from working here and are, empowered by that. So I think that's really more important than worrying about May and June. It's just me.
I think it would be to go to the city and ask for.
Yeah, I would do that first.
I would do that
I would
first.
do
and
that. That would be like
Ask
knee-jerk.
for the moon, and maybe you'll get,
Exactly.
a little star or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
or get
That's
a
kind
little
of
bit
where
of
we're-
extra cash.
That's kind of where we're at this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've
there's-
been asking since the raise came out, and
Right.
this
Yeah.
is this is a generous offer, given that in keeping it flat, we could be actually losing $46,000.
Yeah, I understand.
So I am
Right.
certainly happy to go have this conversation.
Mhm.
I mean, even an increment, a tiny little one, could.
Yeah, fight the good fight.
I
Exactly.
agree with the idea of giving staff raises, because it's always been,
Mhm.
Champagne's always been slightly more and da-da-da. And so they try to be competitive with the city, which,
And the staff does so well in keeping in their own departmental budgets so trim and well run. I don't know. I just think that should be rewarded.
I don't think anybody here is saying that.
No, no.
Just disagree.
No. But I'm
just-
just saying.
How do we?
I
where's the money
I
from?
would much rather dip into a fund balance than think about not giving a raise. That's what I'm saying.
I think I'm more concerned about where it goes from here on. So if you get away from this ask me kind of target, then next year, year after, or whenever they renegotiate, that becomes a given that somehow you're gonna have to come up with these funds. I mean, I'd rather stay close to the city, and, you know, if it has to come to somehow finding funds, the city theoretically has to do the same thing with their non-negotiated staff. So we should share that pain, but I don't think the pain should be the staff's pain because the tax levy's too low or something like that.
That's gonna be the interesting part. That's why I don't wanna go too far down a path of next year's budget, because
Right.
that's a whole other set of calculations about
Mhm.
things, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be a significant increase if you decide to do that, another 125,000 out of this, if the city doesn't approve it, that's a lot of money. And we will find it if we need to find it. We'll have to figure that part out. Is there any more about this? Is there anything else you need from me except to have some conversations? And keep you in the loop when.
Yes, and a little more data, you know, and
Yeah,
just,
I
Do you,
right.
do you have a question for us that we haven't, or do you have a,
No, I think you
okay,
made it clear that you are interested in the retro pay
yeah.
and the staff salary increases.
Yes.
And you'd like me to get more information about how we're
Yeah.
gonna pay for it and what it actually would cost, so we'll.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
well-
I
yeah.
read that article about fund balances.
Yeah.
and, So when you say we have an extra 115,000, I'm like, wait a minute.
Mhm.
Under what, you know? So I think if we're going to think that we have X number of dollars, we really need to all be on the same page about what it is and.
Is that true?
When the audit's done, we can tell you,
Yeah.
but the audit's not done.
Okay.
And we don't know when it will be done. As the auditors are working with the city, and it's new auditors and new staff at the finance department, and they're working their butts off, but, last year, their audit wasn't done until Memorial Day.
Yeah, it was way,
It was after, way after we passed the budget.
Well, just fund balances are very fungible.
Well, they had some other
Look at
problems.
Uni High, they just discovered they were $1 million in the hole, you know, it's like, so, I mean, it's really important to not be talking about any money.
No, this is, we had people from the city that looked at our budget with us and said the difference between where the library's fund balance started,
Yeah.
what we spent, and what our income was 115,000. That was like, here's the math.
Right.
So this much was added to the fund balance, and they gave us a new fund balance number. So
I guess-
that's not funny, I just don't know if they're gonna,
The
Make
thing
any
that worries
transfers
me
that-
is, I mean, we can pay this out of the fund balance this year, but then if we want to pass a balanced budget next year, we're gonna be working with
Mhm.
Right.
That's right, that's the
not
problem.
enough money. It
Right,
looks like probably
exactly.
$270,000 not enough, is that right?
basically, because
If
it's
we gave the
pounds.
2.75%
But
raise next
The
July.
270 includes the FICA and the IMRF.
Oh, right.
So 223 is a closer
So
number,
223.
not that, I mean, definitely.
Or 125. Yeah, it should be if we pay the 90 out of, or whatever, out of fund balance, or this 115,000.
Right.
And we didn't do any increases in services, it looks like we would be $125,000 short, basically, going into the budget.
We would need to find
FY
it
16,
somewhere.
yeah.
Okay.
And
I
you,
know.
I don't know, Jeff, you weren't here when we were budgeting this year, obviously. The library have received gifts from different groups of people over the years, including the Friends, for materials. So what we did this year is we looked at some of those gifts that have not been spent, and we have a 3-year spending plan to use those amounts to help supplement our materials budget this year, next year, and the following year. So our regular materials budget is not covering the materials that we are purchasing within the normal. We are already pulling from our reserves, but that's why they're there, while we look at this and make some changes.
So, sometimes when you end up with a surplus or a fund balance, then people look at it and say, we gave them too much money and they should give it back to us, or next year we'll short them 115,000. So perhaps when you're talking to the city, there should be some way that we can encumber it or do something to it so it doesn't just sit there looking, you know,
We have it, it's in our funds.
Okay,
So-
but I mean, the city gives you money, so can the city
I guess we
give
could-
it back?
We could
No.
kind of do that tonight, couldn't we, by passing the raise, and then it would be spent.
Well, no, but there are people who don't want a big fund balance.
That's right.
Because then somebody looks at it.
Makes them
and
nervous, then
Right.
what they think.
Again, we got within $66,000 last year. At the end of May, our balances for our general fund was $66,000 at the end of May. And that's before June, which is 2 payrolls and 2 bill payments. So had not $600,000 come in June 6th. We would have had to be calling the city for a loan. We have the other funds, the gift funds and such, but some of those are to be not spent
You
except for
can't
particular
push that
things.
money.
So this year it came pretty close. And then the money came through in June and July. So there is not a lot of play in this budget. But we will prioritize what the board is making priorities and we will make it work. And we are.
And for Jeff's benefit, the purchase of materials has been low, and we've tried for years to raise that. So that's why we've used gifts from other places to substitute for our materials budget line.
But we took the larger, the $242,000 that came out of this year's budget in a quick fashion because of the impact of state law and the city's response to it in keeping the rate flat. So we're operating under what we had in the past. And we're making it work.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, let's move on to the other items. Building and grounds. I don't think we've got anything unless the H factor's acting up yet.
Just fine, thank you, sir.
Technology, I don't think we've got anything. Finance report, do we have any additional comments from the committee?
I don't.
I think that was pretty thorough coverage.
Okay, okay.
And then some.
And then some,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, last month you were handed policies, the miscellaneous policy, the general benefits policy, and the vacation and leave policy. And I hope that you either brought them with you or can pull them up on your computers. I think they really were not, well, they were catching up on things that had been approved but not really put in writing, probably. So I don't think there's any real question. But does anybody have anything about these 3 policies that we were given last meeting? Nothing? Oh, wonderful. Then let's have a motion. I think we ought to take them separately. The miscellaneous policy, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. General benefits policy. Anything you want to say in that, in a general way? Okay. Motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Vacation and leave policy. Any comments?
I
guess-
have one small
Okay.
comment.
Okay.
In my director's report, I would like to add a non-substantive
That's right.
addition to this, if that's okay, and if it's not, we'll leave it off. There's a section about when people are allowed to take their holiday.
Yes, that
It
makes
would provide
sense.
greater flexibility to staff to just change it from the holiday week to the paid period.
period.
Hey, good. I think that made a lot of
That's all
sense.
set.
Yeah.
Yep.
With that editorial change, is there a motion?
Can I just ask a
Sure.
question? So on this first page of general benefits, you have part-time salaried employees work a minimum of 20 hours per week in a single job. What's the single job reference?
Sometimes people have 2 positions at the library, possibly. So this is to show that it's in a particular position.
Is there a motion to approve vacation and leave policy?
With the change.
With the change that was
suggested.
suggested.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Education and training. Don't see anything. Report from the liaison groups, anything from the Friends?
Yes, as you may know, there will not be a book sale for lack of material. I think that's the way they put it. They had gone from two sales to 3, and now they're thinking about maybe going back to 2 again. But in any case, there will not be a sale in November. They will revisit the whole issue. And that's really what most of the meeting was about. There's still something about the gardens,
Yeah.
but that's sort of ongoing.
Right.
If anybody wants to do some gardening, Friends would love, Friends would love to hear about it.
Do we need to
The
say anything?
information has gone out on
Yeah.
the sale, so that shouldn't be, it's all taken care of. You don't need to worry about it. It's just a report.
Do we need to make any remark about why there's a lack of material for?
It's
is
been
that-
going down for some time,
Okay,
and they've just decided that's,
There's
Okay.
lots of other people using books, like the books to prisoners, and I think there's a lot more avenues of
That's what I
donation
was gonna say.
possibilities, yeah.
people are, and these boxes that we talked about when we had our, they're all over town now. So
Right.
it's happening to
Yep.
us.
Which is a good thing.
More reading.
Yeah, we hope. The Free Library Foundation, or the
They're working on their fall
letter
letter,
of appeal.
so that should be going out
And-
before Thanksgiving.
And if you have some individuals, I spoke with an individual today that I think we need to work on.
Okay.
So keep those avenues open.
And if that individual's watching this meeting, they'll know you're coming.
He might be too. Illinois Heartland, anything new?
I haven't heard a word from them
Okay.
about meetings or anything else. So I don't
Okay.
know what's going on with that. I'm just supposed to say, show up when I find out there is one, or
Okay. Celeste, you have other comments to make besides your report?
Nope. Except Joel and I are going to be talking at a colloquium next week on campus on the 20th. And if you want, I can send you the link to register for it. It's a luncheon thing about public engagement at the University of the Community. And what they're going to focus on is the teen open lab. So it should be a good talk. So I'll email that link out tonight. The registration closed Friday, but I have a window for you if you're interested in looking for it.
Celeste and I started an orientation at Jeff as our newest board member. You have been given a list of the things that Jeff were given. I would like to see if Jeff's got any suggestions as to things that he didn't feel he got oriented on.
No, there was quite a bit. I haven't gone to all those websites. I did do my open meetings, but I did the freedom of information while I was at it. That was pretty fascinating. So,
I will need you to
Yeah.
Pardon?
If you did the open meeting, I would, you could give me a copy of the certificate.
She needs a certificate to put on file.
That would be, because I could file that.
And then I couldn't access the economic interest. It asked for some
Oh.
password, so I was going to ask you what that meant.
Okay, I'll follow up with you on that.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I thought this list was quite exhaustive, and it gave a lot of references for you to go to that I never felt like I was given.
well, I was just, I
actually-
went through
yeah,
this
I-
and clicked on almost all of
Right.
them, and found it very interesting, and I thought, I think I'd like to have another orientation.
We could
Okay.
absolutely do that. Kathy pulled this together for an IPLAR, for per capita report.
I think it's often the case when you start something, you're so overwhelmed by all this stuff,
Yeah.
you absorb maybe, well, in my case,
10%.
10%, but most people probably 50%. But in any case, after a while,
Yeah.
you know questions to ask and things to look at and for. So obviously, we don't have to go through all of this, but
We'd love to give tours to anyone and walk around and have conversations or have lunch and go through whatever you'd like.
okay.
Yeah, actually, I kind of joined the board at a tumultuous time and didn't get an orientation until I kind of gave myself a self-guided tour
Okay.
with Mary, looking at how books were weeded.
That's right, that's right. That's right. Oh, God.
So, yeah, I'd probably join in on it.
Yeah, actually, I would too.
I'll put an email out and see if
Okay.
we can find some dates, whether it's before the next board meeting or some other couple of times.
Obviously, it'd have to be 2 by 2.
And there's other good opportunities for library trustees. You know, the American Library Association has has lots of programs, which, you know, you can avail yourself of. And this year, ALA Midwinter is in Chicago, which is always a good thing. So I
But
would.
winter in Chicago, like last year's
Yeah.
winter in Chicago is a good
They
thing.
always have midwinter in the coldest city in the nation, and they always have their annual in the hottest city in the nation. You know, so they get good hotel rates, but it's just, you know, the librarian part of the thing. But there are really some excellent programs for library trustees, and since it's, you know, ALA, it's not just Illinois, you really get a really nice perspective. So I would take a look at some of that.
And for my part, too, I'm not sure about how all the other trustees feel, but I do not want a program, I do not want a bunch of PowerPoints, I want you to spend zero time preparing. What I'd like to do is just follow you through your part of the library, tell me what's going on that day. And
I don't know what Jeff would say, but we walked in on the team activity that evening, and it's mind-blowing to watch, because they were doing 10 different things around this room, and it was kind of a neat demonstration.
Yeah. I just like to see what happens on any ordinary day. Because the extraordinary days we'll hear about.
So, it may be a function of my age. My wife was a reporter, so she's really good at this, but I met all these people, and now I see them. I don't remember their names, except for a few people in archives, because they have such unusual names. And Ian, because I always wanted to be called Ian. But, like, has there ever been a thought of like a little photo directory or something like that?
We have photos on the wall in the staff lounge upstairs, which I don't know if we made it in there or not.
Yeah.
And one thing that we've talked about is the staff is some type of intranet, but we can certainly.
I just feel bad now, because I come in and I have to say hi, but I really don't.
Exactly, I have the same, yeah. It's
Yeah,
taken
we
me a
all-
long
yeah,
time.
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
I know, I left mine at home.
Some people just say staff, though, don't they?
They protect their privacy, and that's the
That's-
person they take.
So
But
then
then you
you
can just say,
won't-
hi, staff.
Right.
No, it's a friendly bunch. But yeah, we can talk about that, absolutely.
But thank you, Kathy, for putting that together, because I think that list was pretty exhausting. If anybody can think of anything they didn't see there, please add it.
Well, the team added some more, so this is, Kathy built this really strong foundation, we added links and added people's suggestions,
Okay.
so,
Well, I do have a question about the end, getting the newsletter.
yes.
I went through that, and I'm not sure that I actually am now signed up for the newsletter.
Okay,
I clicked and I changed, and then it all came back again, and there it was, and I thought, well, I thought I just did this.
okay. We'll
So
take a look.
either I did something wrong,
Or
or,
it's
which is, well, I
looping.
probably did something wrong.
Yeah, something, yeah. maybe. Kathy, anything you'd like to report?
The only other thing is that's not in the report is we had a very, very successful Saturday with CU Folk and Roots Festival.
Yeah.
We had all-day events, we had performances in the Busey Knowles Room, and then we had storytelling here in the auditorium. Very, very busy day, and it was great. Everybody enjoyed it, had a lot of good comments from the public, and even from the performers. They especially liked performing in the Busey Knowles reading room.
Really?
The acoustics are wonderful. So, it was a good day.
You couldn't. I have two questions for
I
Kathy.
did.
Number one, have you heard anything since handing in or sending in the per capita?
Oh, no, we probably won't hear about that till, it's probably the beginning of the year, sometime around
Beginning of the year,
February,
okay.
March, maybe.
Oh, that late?
So, yeah.
Okay.
As
And
long as
then
getting
the-
your dental insurance.
I was interested in all the meetings that you've gone to, but particularly the webinar on financial education literacy. What kinds of things could the Urbana Library do that we're not
Sponsor.
doing? Are you mulling that over, or is this just something that might be of interest down the road?
It might be of interest to us down the road. I know Mary every single year does something, and I think we even did something with children's this year on
Money Smart Week.
Money Smart
Yeah,
Week.
that's,
Every year, when is
It's
that,
always the
March?
day after the fairy tale.
It's March.
Yes.
We didn't have one here this
Oh,
year, but
Yes.
we've had them the past 4 or 5 years.
okay.
But it talked about the possibilities of how you can do programming for the public, and even children, in terms of becoming more literate in finance.
Are there other organizations in town that, well, that's a silly question. There are other organizations that do financial literacy. Can we partner with them? Is that
It's a possibility, we could look into it,
something
yes,
to,
yes.
okay.
Whereas
Because it is
they would probably have the
extremely important,
resources of
and-
people.
And they're just a
Yeah.
lot of, I wouldn't want to see us going out trying to do something on our own, and yet I think something should be going on in this building, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I
Great.
mean, it was gave an overall introduction and how you could do things, and I think I passed on all the information to the department heads
Mhm.
for us to talk about in the future.
Great, thank you.
I noticed the logo for the upcoming fairy tale one, it was that consciously to be the color of Elsa's dress.
What?
You made something as
You're on
copyright
track.
as that.
I have a quick question for Kathy. Just, what's the scope of the Illinois State Library Live and Learn construction grants? I mean, what type of range?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I've not, there's a webinar that I have to watch, but I haven't had the opportunity to do it. I've contacted the person at the Illinois State Library, because in reading about it, there's two different grants, and one of them is specific about the type of thing that we would need, because the only reason I knew that is because they gave a list of libraries that applied in the past, and one of them received money for a boiler. I was like, aha! So I have spoken with our HVAC person, and I'm going to grab some of his time, because he comments about the Cleaver Brooks boiler all the time, how he calls it old reliable, but really, any day, you
It's the
don't
old
want to
one.
say that. So I have a feeling he's concerned that we could buy something that is a lot more energy efficient. And then also is that after, if we were to get it and put the boiler in, we would probably get something from, I think Cameron might gives,
Yeah.
no, the DCEO
DCEO.
gives
A credit,
refund.
yeah, energy
For
credit.
some of those things. So the grant it's only about 2 or 3 pages, but it's a lot of very in-depth information. And I have to speak with the HVAC person because it's a different language that I am not aware of. So, but we'll try.
Yes,
See
sir.
what happens.
Personal experience with boilers, many firms don't understand them because they're so old, and there are only a few people around town that really know what they're doing. So mine was, I had a leak, and they almost had me sold on a brand new boiler. But when they got the right person in, it was like, oh, these things last for a long time. So you need to be aware of, who the source is. And sorry. Can I say one other thing too? Just in passing, so I'm at Wiley, not the place where foreign students send their children usually, but we have an increasing number of Chinese students who can't speak English, who sit in class with an electronic dictionary, and I try and talk to them. But have you noticed any increase in Chinese people? I noticed a few of them downstairs in the.
We have a lot of Chinese families that come down to the library. We also have a large Chinese section in the children's
No, it
department.
seems like all of a sudden,
There's-
the university's admitting a whole lot more Chinese
Mhm.
students,
Well,
so.
they are. Yes, they are.
But they catch on to English like that. The kids are amazing.
The kids.
I know, we've got families that want their kids in a non-special school, they want them immersed, but I've seen a couple of them at the library, their parents just sort of bring them over here and
Yeah.
stick them in there.
What was the name of that language thing you did?
Mango.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Mhm.
That has an ESL section, right? Does it have an ESL for Chinese?
For Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah, both.
That might be something to point
And we
out.
have a children's version called Muzzy.
Yeah.
That's
Like
for
Muzzy.
children that has also
Okay.
Chinese.
I'm not sure the schools know about this. I talked to my local librarian and she wasn't familiar with it, but, these kids are like in need of something, and
They can even do that at home, once they get set up.
We regularly reach out, but what we find is that the school media specialists and the teachers have so much information from so many organizations, wanting to make sure that they know what the resources are. It's hard to, we're one of the many voices trying to serve those
Yeah, yeah.
students. And so this is a good reminder, we'll reach out again.
It's just different. If you weren't in it, you wouldn't know that there's a difference. There are more Chinese kids in students and graduate students than ever before, and they just seem to sort of got through the cracks, at least around my school. So.
I'm impressed with the amount of programming when we went through this list here. Attendance didn't seem to be much different, but the number of programs. How did this evening's program come about that was in here before we?
Mary?
Carol was contacted by the Illinois Humanities Council, and it just went from there.
I think it's fantastic, and I think that's what we do to build clientele, is program for clientele.
And what was really cool, it was set up just before he was announced
As the National Book Award.
National Book Award finalist, so.
We've been hard to get him now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Well, we've had people on the cul-de-sac awards committees, and they could kind of clue you in, but that isn't going to happen very often. Have you gotten on that committee yet?
I'm not, but I am on the Monarch Award reading list this year, so I submitted my scores today.
Nice.
Terrific.
Nice.
Oh, boy. Very nice. Okay, what's the next one? Who's the next one?
Adult services?
Who?
You want to go down through the administrative staff?
Okay, I do have a question for Mary.
Yeah.
The uni high representatives, were they students or were they faculty, staff that
It
came through?
was a faculty person and the potential donor who was going to be donating to set up the program at Uni High. They were very interested to see a working resource and get an idea of what we did to put it together and funding.
And was it a Francis Harris connection? Was what
I
with her?
don't think so,
Okay, please give him there.
but I don't know for sure. Joel didn't mention Francis on
Okay.
that.
Anything else for Mary? Laura, anything that you want to add?
Busy.
List was I got tired reading what you just accomplished.
Yeah, and this month is the month that we're focusing on children's services for the 140th. So we have a birthday party, we have so many programs that we couldn't even fit them all on the bulletin board.
That's good. Anka, anything new?
Nothing in addition to my report. We had, I think, didn't mention it to my report because I think that was due before he came, but I want to say Jim Pilon from Pilon Studios. He was the son of the founder of Pilon Studio, which people refer to as Pilon Studio, which is a photo studio, but it was called Pilon because it's Italian. And the son was teased at school, so he changed it to Pylon.
Wow.
And his mother would always, he told us the story that his mother would always correct him when he would mention to his friends that his last name was Pilon. Or Pylon, because she said, it's not Pylon, it's Pilon. But that didn't get, but anyways, Mr. Pilon and his dad ran a photo studio in North Champaign or on Walnut, and we acquired the photo negatives last year, the ones that remained, about 4,000 negatives. And I was happy. I took some nice pictures because we've already entered them and indexed all of them into Local History Online, about 4,000 of them. But at that time, because I wasn't able to be in touch with him, I didn't actually have his address. He also signed a deed of gift for the collection, so that was nice. But he really enjoyed it. He brought his sister as well, who worked at Pilon Studio as well as an assistant and took some other photos as well. So he went through all the photos and gave us little stories. So it was
Very nice.
Wonderful.
Don, anything from you?
Well, you've got my report. I apologize, it wasn't in the regular report, but a few things I wanted to mention. We will have a Polaris upgrade on December 4th, so before the next board meeting, and it's will be down most of the day for that, and so we're going to kind of partner with Champaign as we've done in the past to send an email to people who have used their card recently just to mention that they need to have their library card that day. And it's going to be just, I don't anticipate really huge changes on the staff side or the public side. The main impetus right now is for Champaign to get some of the functionality that's available in this. They're paying extra for a product called Leap. But it's not right for us at this time, so we decided we weren't going to pursue it. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm hard at work getting the CERC statistics together, so I'm very hopeful to have those for you next month.
You want to raise
Now,
your?
we have one more report that we get, acquisitions, and I have a question in there, so I'll, okay.
We'll take it.
The phrase bib
I have that
overlay
one.
issues.
Yes, I had that same thing.
Really? What
Yep.
are bib
Yep,
overlay
right there.
issues? Yeah.
Highlighted.
It's
Yes.
a cataloging thing. When you share a database,
Okay.
sometimes we have a record in the computer already, and Champaign brings the same book in, and the record representing that book overlays the record that we already have in the database.
It's
And
probably bibliographic. Has nothing to do with a, something you put
No,
around your neck
or
and
a
go blue, blue,
bibliographic.
blue, blue.
It's a
Okay.
cataloging thing.
Oh,
And so
all right.
basically, it was a way of freezing the records so they couldn't be overlaid. Because what happens is if we
You get
spend
two.
time adapting something, and then the unadapted one that we changed comes back in and writes over it the same way like a Word document or something, then that's very frustrating. So we're trying to work that out and coordinate with Champagne's catalogers.
Okay, thank you. Glad we both.
Yes. Anything that you think?
Just under unfinished business, you have a new statistic sheet. It looks different than the old ones, a little bit more sleek, shiny. So Dawn is working with a couple of other Polaris libraries to look at more efficient ways of pulling the circulation statistics than we have used in the past. We're taking a slightly different approach. The different approach appears to be getting us these same numbers though, so this will be a big time savings for staff to be able to pull those CERC numbers in a slightly different way using canned reports versus doing a lot of manipulation on the other side. So we've talked about having a different, sleeker statistical report. This is our first shot at it. We're going to fill in those other numbers before next month, or by next month. So give it a look, see if it's giving you the kind of information that you need to answer the questions that you get. We're looking at, again, new financial statements as well, so we can give you some more of a big meta look at our budget versus having to pour through the 38-page budget and forecast. But I wanted to wait till the audit was done, because I am hopeful it'll be done soonish. They're looking at how they lay out some of the numbers and how they're representing them differently than the past auditors have. So I don't want to map it out and say, here's it,
Yeah.
and we're going to do it monthly and have them change it. I can do that, I'm certainly flexible, but I thought if you can wait just a couple more months, the budget and forecast is available, the detailed trial is available, but when they lay it out, we can match them and then give you something month for month to show where we are within the fiscal year of our spending and such. And then at the end of the year, it will line up nicely.
You said you didn't know their time frame. Are they not in the building every day right now?
No, they're
No.
done with us in the city for now. They're back
Oh,
in the
okay.
Chicago area.
Okay. So it's just a matter of them massaging whatever they do and,
Right.
okay.
They were done with, the auditors finished with the library last year before they finished with the city. Maybe that will happen again, or maybe they'll piece and part it out and pull them all together at the same time. I don't know. But as soon as we have something to share, we certainly will.
Okay. Are there any other questions for unfinished? Any new business? I don't know of any. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Thank you.